everybody, it is April 27th. Coming to you from the Northern Indiana studios, it's me, Joel, and with me, as always, is...
From the Southern studio, hey, it's Jason. What's going on?
We are the Board Game Mechanics.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the news. So for the first bit that I have is Manaforge arrived and has been played a couple times, and a review for that will be coming shortly. And I'll be talking about that a little more later. So that's all I'm going to do for that right now.
What's it rank?
Dice rolling, and I'll be talking about that a little more later. So that's all I'm going to do for that right now.
What's it rank? What's Manaforge rank in your top 100 yet?
No, it's pretty simple. It's like an entry level dice rolling engine builder game. I mean, it's fun, but it's not something that I'd want to play all the time.
We can save it for later because I see it again there.
Yeah. Second that I wanted to talk about is we have another review copy coming for a game called Pixel Glory Light and Shadow. I've actually played regular Pixel Glory a few times, so I think this is a standalone expansion, so you can mix it together with the original or play it by itself. It's pixel artwork, and it's a simple little like dungeon crawl, fight the baddie game. So I'm pretty excited to check that one out and get a review up.
And I guess in not Board Game Mechanics related news, the Dinosaur Island Kickstarter closed out, it looked like.
Oh, yeah.
1.7 million, something like that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. I got the expansion and the Kickstarter upgrade tokens.
This is my wife being cool. Sometimes she's cool. This week she's being really cool. I had the survey come. She bought it for me for my birthday, and then she was like, "You know what? It's stupid for me to try and like hide it from you or whatever. So right. I'm just gonna like tell you that I got it for you." And so she did that, and she sent me the survey to fill out to finalize everything. And she was like, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get the expansion. I could add it on, but I'm not gonna. I'll just wait for it. And she's like, whatever. You're going to buy it anyway. Just add it. And I was like, you are the coolest. So anyway.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
Well, and she's like, you get the extras that way and stuff. And I think you probably get all the extras anyway, but I'm assured to get them now, I would say. So
right,
I don't know.
Thing running pretty smoothly on that. Like I just saw a post from the designer, and they're already like planning to get it on the boat here in like a week.
Wow. Base game?
The base game. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. That's really awesome, actually.
Yeah. So I just have one more bit that I wanted to mention. There's a game on Kickstarter now called Realm Master, and it's by designer Joel Harper. It's like, I don't know, not even halfway funded maybe, but it's a 3 to 6 player family game. It has some area control, some take that, and it said it's like a light filler game. So it seemed interesting. The artwork is really beautiful, and I think when this episode drops, there'll be about 18 or 19 days left. So if you can go check it out and see if it's on there for you, and maybe throw some support behind it and get this another great game brought out to the masses.
And you're going to hear about this one later, but Posers, a game that we talked to the creator of this episode.
Out to the masses.
And you're going to hear about this one later, but Posers, a game that we talked to the creator of this episode. It's another one that you might want to check out. It's one that I think if you haven't bought any of the social deduction type games yet, it's certainly a good entry. And it's something that, I don't know, I think the price point's right on it. It seems like it's a lot of fun. If you're a child of the 80s and you want to have some nostalgia feels, it's something maybe to check out.
Yeah, I agree. That interview will be really exciting, so stay tuned.
So, Jason, our next thing we're going to talk about here, oh boy, this is like, I think we're going to get, I don't know, maybe not hate mail. So somebody out there is going to say, I can't believe you missed this game. But 2018, we're entering May here, okay? So if you're listening to this episode, we've got this weekend and then it's May, you know? And can you name May, you know? And can you name 4 games that you've liked this year, or 4 games that have come out this year that you've been like, oh, that's something I really want to play or have played?
I can name one, and that's Rajas of the Ganges.
Right. And actually, I got an incredible deal on that on the, so here's a pro tip for you guys. This is a little aside. A pro tip. This is only 51 weeks early. This isn't 1 week late. This is 51 weeks early. Okay. For next year. On the Monday before tabletop day, Amazon runs a pretty sweet sale. So I got Rajas of the Ganges, which you were like, I don't know. I had a inkling to pre-order it at my local shop. And you were like, yeah, it's fine. But then they had it 50% off on the Amazon. So I was like, it's too pretty not to own. So you know what? I think it's game of the year so far. If we gave out awards right now, I don't know what else you'd give it to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to search what is even going on right now because, yeah, it's been pretty quiet.
Feudum and Rising Sun. Oh, I think it's game of the year so far. If we gave out awards right now, I don't know what else you'd give it to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to search what is even going on right now because, yeah, it's been pretty quiet.
Feudum and Rising Sun, I think, are the other two entries that I would say are, oh, wow, that's cool.
But are they really 2018 games?
I think so. I think Feudum is for sure. I mean, I don't think it had a full release until this year.
We'll look it up.
For sure. Well, like the other thing too is the release of board games is so convoluted. Like some games get released in like Europe or Asia and one like 2 years later than the United States. So I don't know. It's like, what's the voting criteria? I don't know.
It does say that Rising Sun was 2018, which that's surprising. I actually thought that was last year, but maybe because it was on Kickstarter all last year.
Yeah, no, it was all over Kickstarter. Well, and then I don't know. Fairy Tale is definitely 2018 release, full release. Consider release. I like that one quite a bit.
Fairy Tile, 2017 game to me. So,
right. Well, I mean, like, yeah, and it's only going to get worse because here's an official announcement. If you guys want to send us like previews or review copies, we're open for that now. Okay, so go ahead, just do that.
Yep, I'm with you. Seconded.
So anyway, no, I mean, we'll be more than happy to look at your games for you. So, whatever. We've been doing some of that already. And I don't think we've had a game yet that's not been something cool about it, you know? So,
yep.
Anyway,
True.
Awesome. Anything else from 2018, Jason, that you're like, oh man, I'm even looking at the GenCon releases and like, I don't know. I know there's always a couple of really big surprises, but I'm not even sure what I'm hyped about. Museum, that looks pretty cool.
I'm pumped about the dice game of Zolkin. Tukian or something like that. I don't even know how to say it, but it's from one of the designers of Zolkin.
Talking about how
it's not really a dice version, but it's a more dice focused game than most of the games that they've done before. So I'm pretty pumped about that one. And Escape Plan by Vital Lacerda.
Well, the thing that I think got this conversation started is you and I were talking about how little publishers could put stuff out right now and it would get so much love and hype because it'd be the only thing coming out right now. And instead, for whatever reason, people think they need to release at these cons and there's so much competition to get attention there. So I don't know. I think, Rajas of the Ganges is a really cool looking game. And from the way you describe it, it plays really well and it's a nice game. But I mean, like, I don't even know if it would get hype or be really like, oh, wow, look at this game if they released it, Essen or something. So the R&R is kind of smart, I mean, to do what they did.
I guarantee by the end of the year, even by GenCon, no one's going to even remember that game anymore, which is sad.
Yeah, it's just crazy how we do things in this industry and games. And then everyone's going to release their car. I guess they kind of do that, but like they call them model years, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But like, can you imagine if like the distribution of cars was this way? Like first off, you buy your car and it's missing like key components. So you're like, hey, I've got to contact Toyota because my car's missing a transmission. And then like, oh, sorry, our bad. We'll send you a transmission right away. And then like that kind of stuff happens. Like you're missing player boards and stuff in games. And then,
right. Yeah.
And then can you imagine too, if you're like, I really want a Corolla, but they've been out of print since 2014 because Z-Man Automotive put that car out. So I don't know if it'll ever get a reissue. I don't know. So it's just weird.
Yeah, that is true. This is a different industry that no other business functions like that. That's true. I never thought about that.
Well, and I mean, I think it's getting better as they become more like legit. I mean, it used to be way worse. I mean, I remember one time I was trying to find Tales of the Arabian Nights, which is kind of embarrassing to admit that way worse. I mean, I remember one time I was trying to find Tales of the Arabian Nights, which is kind of embarrassing to admit that was like my grail game for a while, but I was trying to find it for a while. And then I found it at some little like scientific, elements supply store. in North Carolina, and I was like, oh my gosh, they have it at MSRP. That's so exciting. And I bought it. And then I had the only copy that I knew of in Indiana for like a year. So it was hard to find for a year. And then it wasn't around for another year. So it's just one of those weird things of, it's still that way to a very large degree too. And right. I don't know, like you mentioned Rogers of the Ganges, like that game by all accounts is really good, but there's so much stuff coming out that you're exactly right. I don't know that game will ever get a reprint. Like if it would be successful enough to ever get a reprint, and it's just going to disappear. You know, I mean, it's just what happens.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Like I was actually watching Man vs. Meeple today. They were talking about classic games, and one of the games they mentioned was Rococo. And the same thing happened where that game came out and nobody talked about it because it came out before a big con. And now, like you mentioned that game, and most people are like, what's Rococo? I've never even heard of it. It's just stuff like that where great games get, just lost in the shuffle because there's 90,000 other games that come out all the time. It's crazy.
Are we just going to skim over the fact that they called Rococo a classic game? The game's what, like 4 years old? I don't know, something like that.
It came out in 2014, yeah. I mean, but really though, think about it. If it's not a game from this year, it pretty much is a classic game because no one talks about it. So
yeah,
I mean,
I love that classic game, Blood Rage. That's such a good classic game.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
But I mean, it's kind of true though. I mean, we do have this stupid call to the new thing happening in the industry, and it's like I don't know. I think part of it's kind of like we're early enough into a game too. So it's like, who can have the biggest, baddest collection with the most current cool toys in it? You know what I mean? And then like, there's almost a thing of speculation too, where like you blind buy certain games because you're just like, I really hope this one ends up being good. And then I'll have the copy that no one else has because I bought it early enough that, it wasn't in that horrible 2-year reprint period. So
right.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, anyway, that's enough, lunatic banter. I don't think that's even zany about how weird 2018's been with gaming so far. When one of the hottest releases was DOS, a sequel to Uno.
I did see that. I was like, why is everybody posting about this DOS game? What is this?
It's sold out everywhere too. Like it's nuts.
That is nuts. Oh man.
Whatever. Maybe it's amazing. I don't know.
I doubt it.
Well, anyway, I have my
great transition.
Jason, you had the saddest sad face when I was posting pictures to you of my little board gaming time on Saturday because you were like, I'm all alone. I only have my friend of me to play games with. But you got to play some stuff on Sunday then, right?
I did, yes. The first game I played was one we just mentioned in the news, and that was Manaforge. And that game, I mean, while I just said that those things earlier, it is a fun game. It's just really simple. So it's too simple for me, but the people that I played with loved it. My buddy Brandon and his wife Josie, they loved it. Well, I don't know if Josie did, but Brandon did. And you just roll some dice. You're using the dice as like resources to buy cards. And these cards are going to help you. The people that I played with loved it. My buddy Brandon and his wife Josie, they loved it. Well, I don't know if Josie did, but Brandon did. And you just roll some dice. You're using the dice as like resources to buy cards. And these cards are going to help you to have more resources in the future to buy more cards or to get points. So you're either buying cards to put in your workshop to use to buy more cards, or you're buying cards to just put them in your little sideboard to get points. And you're going to do that over 9 rounds, and then whoever has the most points wins.
I'm going to need you to repeat all that because I wasn't paying any attention. Because the name Manaforge to me is so fascinating. It makes me think of like an old Civil War boat made with thick wooden sides that couldn't be sunk by the man of war. I don't know. Like Manaforge is just a fun name. Like it really does sound like the name of like a old timey weapon or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Go
agree.
Quick, get the Manaforge.
The rule book. The rule book is amazing. It's the best rule book that I think I've ever read since I've been playing board games.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. It has every card in there spelled out. It has pictures of setup. It has what exactly you're supposed to do for setup. It has everything written really clearly. in order. It shows you how to score. It shows you like all the sides of the dice. It's amazing.
We need to do an episode just on good and bad rule books, but the things you just named are things that are seriously in the best rule books. There seems like there's two ways people do rule books, good and bad. That's one way to look at it. But I mean, like, there are definitely rule books where you're like, oh, wow, I love how they did this. What's the one I just played that I was like, wow, that's a really great way to do it. It basically had one column that was all just rules of the game. And then the other column was like a narrative that was like a play of the game where those rules were being played out as like these people played a game. It was like a narrative that was like a play of the game where those rules were being played out as like these people played a game. And I was like, oh, that's really kind of a cool way to do it. Cool. But I think the most critical thing you just mentioned that is like an absolute, you must have this in order to have a good rule book is the diagram of like setup. Like I get so frustrated when they don't have the good diagram at the beginning. Like that's just, if you have the setup, the setup basically tells you the vocabulary also that you're going to need to know. So it's like, make a draw pile here. And then you can reference, oh, there's my draw pile. And then have, these tokens, which are named here, put them here, I mean, so later when you say like draw 4 tokens from this pile, you go, oh, that pile that you had there for me. The thing that drives me absolutely nuts is when like, they're like referencing things that you have no idea what they are. They're like, well, of course everyone knows what the goblet of Gimpish fun is. I mean, like everyone knows that, I mean, goblets of fun. I love that game. The movie's really good too, but
if that was a real game, I'm probably going to pass. It sounds like Ameritrash.
You never saw the Harold the Wizard Boy movies?
No, I didn't.
Oh, they're really good. It's about a boy who goes to station 8 and 5/8, and he heads there with his most beloved falcon, and ends up going to school. That
is ringing a bell. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's a great series.
It's a great series.
You'd love it.
Yeah, I've seen a series like that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Probably a ripoff.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good. You're right.
So yeah, that was what I played over the weekend was Harold and the Great Boy of Magic's Goblet of Gobbling. It was really fun. It's a co-op game though, so you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I'm out.
No, but really, what did I play?
Yeah, I'm out.
No, but really, what did I play? Well, it wasn't near as exciting as that. So like I was playing board games with these guys, and I've been playing games with them for like a couple years now. And I've made them into like decent gamers. Like they've played some pretty good games. And so like, I'm like, what do you guys want to play? And they're like, why do you have like 5 copies of the same game? And it was Ticket to Ride. And I've got a bunch of different maps of it because my wife really loves that game. Right. And in my mind, like everybody like in preschool plays Ticket to Ride. Like it's something you play. Like, yeah. I don't know. If you're going to play like the games I'm going to teach you, then you've played Ticket to Ride. Like it's a prerequisite, but they'd never played Ticket to Ride. So I broke out Ticket to Ride, and it was kind of fun to explain that game to people because it's really easy to explain, but they had a good time with it. They were like, oh wow, this game's really rock solid. And I was like, man, that's crazy. You guys didn't have this foundational game that you've played, but you've been playing like Mombasa and like stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know. It felt really light to them, I'm sure, but it's a good game. And the thing about it, they're hyper competitive. They aren't all about the like social and the event part. They're just about, I'm going to win. And so they played the most ugly, nasty game of Ticket to Ride I think I've ever seen, where like one person would go into like Santa Fe, and then like everyone else would immediately be like, I'm getting a route into Santa Fe just in case I need it later. And I want to block other people from Santa Fe. Well, guess who needed to go to Santa Fe? I did. And I was too busy like trying to conceal my cards and my routes to get into Santa Fe. So I don't know.
I was going to ask you which one you played. So clearly you played regular, right?
Yeah, Santa Fe edition. It's all about making a subway in Santa Fe.
Just Santa Fe is the only city you're just driving around.
Yep, absolutely. No, we played the typical one, but we played with the 1910 deck. Not the full deck. We didn't play with like big cities, but I will not play with those tiny little like children's hand-sized cards anymore. They irritate me. So we got the 1910s out, but we didn't play with big cities, which I think that actually helps the game quite a bit. But little like children's hand-sized cards anymore. They irritate me. So we got the 1910s out, but we didn't play with big cities, which I think that actually helps the game quite a bit. But played the most vanilla version of Ticket to Ride you can play. And you know what's crazy too, Jason? There might be a person listening to this podcast Like it's entirely possible because Ticket to Ride's old enough now that hasn't played Ticket to Ride. Like that would blow my mind, but it's certainly possible. If you haven't, it's an absolute staple. It's like one of those like essential games that you have to play in your life. It's Rummy with plastic trains. What more can you ask?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great game. I have like 3 versions of it myself, as should everybody. I mean, everybody has America. Most people have Europe, and then some people have some of the crazier ones. But yeah, it's a good game. I like it. It's a little too light for me, but yeah, it's still great.
I had Markland at one time and I traded it away, which I'm kicking myself about. I have Nordic Countries, which is my favorite for 2 players. And it's something that my wife and I'll play around Christmas time because it has like these cool hollyberry trees or trains covered in snow. And then it's a really tight map for 2 or 3 players. And that's a 3-player max game, there. And the cool thing about it also is like, it's Sweden, you know, cause it's Nordic countries and my wife's family's all from Sweden. So, it's fun to hear her pretend like she can pronounce all the like city names when she's never even heard of them, but whatever.
But
the actual real cool thing is there's one route that is like, I'm going to say at least 8 train cars long that you can go between and it's worth a ton of points. So if you can get that 20 point, you know, connecting route between 2 cities, it's crazy. It's kind of a game maker for you. But then I've got Asia, which is kind of cool because it has like a Teams variant in it. I've got Europe.
I have Asia as well.
I've got Rails and Sails, which I think I'm the only person I know who owns Rails and Sails. Ticket to Ride, I don't know.
Right, yeah. You just go play another game.
Well, I mean, like it's basically Ticket to Ride, but then it has these ports in it that you can steal other people's points kind of by putting these ports in. Not steal their points, but like piggyback on their points. Right. And then you have to like estimate how many trains you want and how many boats you want. So it kind of adds the 2 together. The thing I really like about it is I'm from, you know, northern Indiana. Speaking of which, if you hear this and you're in northern Indiana, go to Rupel's Toy Trains tomorrow for International Tabletop Game Day. But, that was a quick aside there for you. But being here in northern Indiana, one of the maps is the Great Lakes region. So it's like kind of cool to like have towns that I regularly go to on the map. So, I mean, like Chicago, South Bend, places like that, you know, Kalamazoo, things that I go to like really regularly are on the map. So,
that's cool.
That makes it kind of good. But I think I would definitely, if somebody wanted to trade me on Board Game Geek for what it's selling for on Amazon right now, I'd trade it pretty happily. Selling for on Amazon right now, I'd trade it pretty happily because it's like, I think new copies are listing for $250 right now because it's one of those just, hey, remember our industry and how we talked about you don't print games for 3 years between print runs? It's in like one of those like lags right now. So next pro tip, Jason, before you go into your next game is, there's a game out there that gets a lot of hate. Okay. I'm going to tell you this game is not bad. It's not bad at all. And you should go pick up a copy before it goes out of print and never gets reprinted because it won't ever get reprinted. And that game is Relic Runners. You will find it for like $17 at your local game shop because no one bought any copies ever. And it's not very good the first time you play it, but like the 5th time you play it, it's pretty solid. Anyway, that's my insider's pro tip for you guys.
Yeah, I still need to play that game. So someday.
Yeah, it's the first time you play it, you aren't going to like it. I mean, you're just going to be like, what? It's whatever. But like, seriously, the more you learn how to like manipulate those paths and stuff, and the more you play against somebody you competitively can do that, the paths and stuff, and the more you play against somebody you competitively can do that, the better it gets. It's the game of royalty. It's the Queen's chess for the 21st century. So.
Well, you know what? It is not Pixel Lincoln.
No.
And that's what I played.
I sold my copy for $5 and I felt really relieved to get rid of it.
Yeah, you sold it to me. I actually, like, the funny thing is, it says it's a deck building game, but you're really you kind of are, but you're really putting all the cards that you get, which are mostly the bad guys that you're fighting, into your score pile. So over the course of the game, I think I had a deck of like 18 cards and you start with 10.
Right.
So it's sort of a deck building game, but it's also like an adventure, kind of like a Nintendo adventure game. So you're like, attack, jump. And then, you know, you get into the level and you scroll backwards. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not something that I want to play all the time. So you're like, attack, jump. And then, you know, you get into the level and you scroll backwards. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not something that I want to play all the time, but I'd probably play it again, at least.
I think I played it like maybe 10 times. And that copy, I think I traded you, like maybe only had 2 plays on it. It probably should seem pretty new.
It does.
But it has that oversized penny, and that's kind of cool, right?
That is cool, yeah. And the Abraham Lincoln with the afro heads. Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of cool, too.
It is, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, it's just silly. Like, the thing that you have to mention when you talk about this game, too, is all the weapons in that game are, like, meat products. Yeah. So, like, you can get, like, a string of sausages to fight bad guys with. I mean...
The mutton star is pretty awesome, too.
Yeah. It's a funny game. I mean, like, I think that's the best thing you could say is that it's just a funny game. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
For a couple minutes and then jump over and fight some dudes. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, and the other thing too is like, I think it's as good as any of those like silly little boss monster pixel tactics, like
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Penny Arcade type games. You know, I think it's as good as any of those. But I don't know. It's one that you won't see around much probably because I don't know. The other thing too is they were supposed to be doing an actual video game of Pixel Lincoln at some point too. And I think it died. So
yeah,
that's sad.
That's sad because that could be pretty awesome. That would be pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, it might be. So Jason, do you remember how I talked about how those guys played games in like the totally weird order because they learned Ticket to Ride way later? The game we literally played right before that was Royals. And usually when you explain Royals, you're like, this game's a little like Ticket to Ride because you have one of two choices that you can have on your... Yeah. Like, so after they played Ticket to Ride, it was really funny because you're like, oh, so it's like the last game we played where you choose which thing you want to do on your turn. Like,
yep, exactly like that.
Thing you want to do on your turn. Like,
yep, exactly like that.
That's a good game though. It's, I don't know if I want to say it's better than Ticket to Ride, but it's different and it feels heavier too, to a degree. I mean, there's just a little more going on to it. The only thing I can't figure out on that game is like when you kick somebody out of a spot and you put them in that little like square next to it, why don't they just put their wooden cube back in their supply? Like I can't quite figure that part out, but
because it still counts for area control because you can still be in every city even though you're not really controlling the city.
Well, but like in the rules, it says that you don't get your bonuses unless you're actively on a monarch. So it's like, I don't know. Does it still count for majorities?
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's how I always play it.
Huh. Because I know that
unless I'm playing it wrong.
For sure you can't get those crests unless you're active in every city. Because there were a couple times where I was like, oh man, I'm going to be really close to getting this thing. And then someone would kick me out. But I'd totally obliterate too because they totally ignored like the marshal and all the low guys and just went for the high guys. They got all just kings and princesses and cardinals. And then at the end of the game, they got the 16, the 12 and the 10. Plus they got all those influence points throughout the whole game and just, it's such a better way to go. And the other thing too is like, you kind of waste your cards if you keep investing in those low guys and get kicked out. Whereas if you get a king, it takes an extra intrigue card to knock somebody out. So it's kind of, I think it's a little bit more safe bet because it takes a while to get 8 cards. Plus you need the 2 intrigue cards and that's pushing your hand limit right there. So, I mean, I don't know. That's my strategy. This game is Royals, by the way. Maybe I should give some background on this game. It's an area control game where you're drafting cards from each of the major countries, I guess, that have been around the Middle Ages, after the Middle Ages. And you're trying to influence different royal people by having enough influence cards that you can play on them. And then you put a wooden cube on them. And it's one of the Dice Tower Central games. And then you put a wooden cube on them. And it's one of the Dice Tower Central games. One of the Dice Tower Central games that people didn't really talk about, honestly. I mean, I think the 4 Dice Tower Central games I can think of are Sheriff of Nottingham, which was everywhere for 2 years. Right. Onitama, which has been the abstract game of choice for like the last year or so. Right. Viral, which is blowing people out of the water and people love that game a ton. It's making like a lot of top 20 lists. And then Royals, which like, it's like, hey, remember me? And I know that right now on Card House, you can get a copy of Royals for like $26 on clearance. So it's another one that might be a good bargain proposition for people out there. I know you love this game too, Jason.
I do. I like this better than Ticket to Ride because it's a little gamery. You have to do a little more thinking than Ticket to Ride because you don't have goal cards. You have to actually make your own goals. Like, where do I need to go? Where do I need to get people placed so I can get some crests? Where do I need to get people placed so I can get some crests? I need to get to that space, but you're in there, so I got to get some stuff to boot you out. So it's essentially Ticket to Ride, but instead of placing trains, you're putting cubes on dudes. But I like it a little better.
I will say one of the really cool things about this game too, it's small, but it's really cool, is if you have a tie on one of the people you've been influencing, it has those puzzle piece things where you like break the puzzle piece in half and flip it over and it figures your points out for you.
Yeah,
which is stupid, really cool. But it's cool.
No, it's genius. I wish more people would do that. That's an amazing little feature.
Yeah, it's one that I endorse. I think Jason endorses it too.
Yes.
And I think, I don't know, I wasn't quite sure if it was in my top 100 between plays, but I think it probably is. I don't know that it's top 50, but it's certainly top 100 on my list.
It's up there for me. It's probably one of my go-to gateway games because it's just easy to teach and I still have fun playing it. So I really like it. It
can be a little bit mean for just like hazing. If you want to play games with me, you got to be able to hang out with the big boys here, and I don't want to see any tears get on the sweet, sweet cardboard in front of you. So I don't know. It's like your way of like figuring out who you can play with, I guess.
Yeah, I think like it doesn't bother me as much. The meanness doesn't bother me as much in Gateway because it's not like I don't have to form this like 12 turn strategy.
Yeah,
that someone can come along and wreck me because you're kind of just playing turn by turn. So if someone screws you over, you just fix it next turn. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Can I tell you my favorite thing right now in my own personal board gaming life that just made me think of is I've been playing board games with my brother and my dad like every Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, and my other brother really won't play, and Luke, my son, will play sometimes, but usually it's the three of us. And we played Scythe, and I've been like kind of trying to explain these games to my dad, and Scythe is a little heavy for him, so I kind of had to walk him through the rules almost every time that we played it. I can't even understand for combat, and my brother had this like you said, 12-step plan that he was trying to pull off to get into the middle, to get to factory and just whatever. And then like my dad just randomly does this like crazy stuff and it totally handicaps him. And it's totally king making for me. And it's so funny because it's like the guy can't even understand the rules, but he king makes really badly. I guess it's a better story if you're there, but he does it every game. I'm not even kidding. Like every game he does it.
He did it with Happy Pigs too, kind of.
Yeah, he did.
We played that one time.
Yeah, absolutely. He totally did.
That's hilarious.
That's kind of our ongoing joke is that he does it every time. So that's kind of, I get what you're saying. Like where on those heavier games like Scythe or whatever, you are, like gathering resources for this thing. And then all of a sudden somebody can jump in and like destroy you and steal all your resources. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going back 4 turns now. And I guess in Royals, it doesn't really do that. I mean, maybe a little if you're like knocked out of the king, but even then, and then all of a sudden somebody can jump in and like destroy you and steal all your resources. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going back 4 turns now. And I guess in Royals, it doesn't really do that. I mean, maybe a little if you're like knocked out of the king, but even then, hopefully you got some area control out of it and stuff. So I don't know. All right, Jason, talk about this next game because I want to hear about it.
All right. So moving on from some entry level and some Nintendo, we are jumping over to my boy Vital Lacerda, and I played Kanban. And oh man, this game is deliciously crunchy. Oh, so good. Oh.
You keep obsessing about this game. Like even in our little like behind the scenes, hey, what are we talking about in this episode? You know how like our producer Facebook has talks with us about, what we're going to talk about in the next episode. You keep talking about like, man, this game's so good. I want to play it again. Like after you played it, you keep talking about it. So,
so good.
I think it's going to end up in your top 10 for sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yet.
I have to get it played more because that's the thing is that I don't think people dig the theme as much. And I thought it was going to be a beast to teach, but I actually taught it in like 10 minutes. So I think maybe now that I know how to teach it, I can get this game played a little more. So we'll see. We will see.
So, okay, tell me about this game. I own it. Haven't played it yet. I mean, I bought it just because I've heard enough awesome things about it. But here's where I'm at with it. It's a Portuguese guy who made a German-styled board game about cars where the name is literally the Japanese word for billboard. Like, none of it matches.
Right, yeah. It's a little random, yeah. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a game where you're trying to design cars, upgrade cars with certain kind of car parts, use car parts to get cars off an assembly line to take them down to a test track so you can take these cars and put them in your garage for some piles of points at the end of the game. The trick is, so I can go in your garage for some piles of points at the end of the game. The trick is, you don't really know the best way to do that. So you're trying to decide, well, do I want to get blueprints now so I can make the car? Do I want to go get some car parts so I can try to get some blueprints later? Do I want to go over in the admin area so I can go anywhere I want? And meanwhile, while you're doing that, there's this little boss meeple that comes around and judges you on how well you're doing in each area. And if you're not doing good enough, she punishes you and makes you lose points. So not only are you playing against your opponent, you're also playing against the stupid little boss lady who's beating you down the whole time.
The judgy meeple woman.
Yeah.
You had such disdain for her in your voice.
Gosh, she's terrible. Like, you're playing and you think you're doing a good job, and then here she comes into your area and she just smacks you around for 5 points. Yeah, it's wretched.
I'm guessing she's like a deck of cards, really. Like, honestly, right? Or something? Like,
no.
The way how you're describing her, she's like anthropomorphic wooden.
And then when she comes to your area, there's this little card that tells you what happens. And she like gets rid of a whole bunch of stuff on the board. She speeds up the game. She gets rid of all your parts. Yeah, it's nasty. She's nasty.
So what does any of this have to do with billboards?
I don't know. I mean, it's just a game about making cars. I don't know. Nothing really. There's not a single billboard in the game, actually.
So it's not about marketing or anything? Like,
nope. It's strictly about making cars, getting them in your garage and upgrading them. Nothing about marketing. Yep.
Jason, you're going to feel slighted because I forgot to mention this to you until just now. I found a Facebook group called Vidal Lacerda Board Games or something like that. And it was started by Vidal Lacerda. And I joined it last week. So
what?
Yeah, like it's like Vidal Lacerda's like announcement place. And people are like, hey, Vidal, how do you do this? And he's like, here's how you, it's like Vidal Lacerda's like announcement place. And people are like, hey, Vidal, how do you do this? And he's like, here's how you do that. Like, so you need to find that probably.
Yeah. I'm looking for it now.
Click, 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 click. Okay, I'm going to talk now because Jason's gone.
No, I found it.
He was talking about Kanban, and they were like, "Hey, when's a reprint coming?" And he was like, "Well, this summer." He's like, "But in 2020, we're going to do a deluxe edition." And he's like, "I'm really hoping Eagle Griffin Games will do it because I want Ian O'Toole to do my art for it." So, like, that might be coming.
I hate it already.
I know because you can't afford it with your $50 for board games rule.
Not even that. Like, I love the Gallerist, and that's Ian O'Toole and Eagle Griffin. But I don't know. After seeing the old versions of the games, I get so used to looking at that every time I see the new stuff, it just messes with my head. Yeah. I don't know. And the Gallerist has only ever been with me, and I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Although, if I remember right, isn't the Gallerist like a re-implementation of Rook, the game Rook?
Yeah, I think so. It's just as easy and everything. Yeah, you're right.
That's what I thought. Just it's basically a reskin. It's not really at all. But Rook does bring me up to, if you didn't get a chance to watch I went live last night or Tuesday night, depending on when you listen to this, and did my top 10 trick-taking games. Well, I'm going to do another one yet this week. So there might be 2 of them on our Facebook page. So go to our Facebook page and check these videos out where I'm talking about my top 10 games of certain categories. And I'm going to go ahead and make an announcement for Jason right now. Jason, guess what I'm volunteering you for? You're going to live co-stream with me to do top 10 worker placement games. So start figuring out your top 10 worker placement games. Should be easy.
Oh, that's easy.
I think your top 10 is all your top 10 before. You're going to live co-stream with me to do top 10 worker placement games. So start figuring out your top 10 worker placement games. Should be easy.
Oh, that's easy.
I think your top 10 is all your top 10 favorite worker placement games.
I would agree. Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. And sometime in the next couple weeks, I'm going to do a live co-stream with him. I'm going to figure out how to do it, and we will do our top 10 favorite worker placement games. But I'm doing my top 10 favorite dudes on a map games later this week. But I did my top 10 trick-taking games, and that was sort of inspired by this game I played. And I've played it like obsessive compulsively since I first played it. And that game is Fox in the Forest. It is so good. Do you like trick-taking games at all, Jason?
Yeah, I was talking to Katie about this. I do, but I would just rather play euchre. I don't know. I like trick-taking games, but euchre is just my old faithful.
So let me tell you something, though. This is why Fox in the Forest is awesome. Hours of the different to it.
Right.
But it only plays with 2 players. Like, that's the only way you play it. So, I mean, I don't know there's that many trick-taking games for 2 players out there. So that makes it awesome in its own right. But then it has so many layers of strategy to it. It's so cool. So there's like the special powers of the different cards, how you can change the trumps mid-hand. The fact that you want to win a bunch of tricks, but not win all the tricks. Cause if you do, you do badly. But if you don't win enough, you do poorly too. Or if you don't win hardly any at all, you do really great too. So it's like, I don't know. There's just so many different ways that this game plays and so many different layers to it and just different strategies. And I mean, I think I said this on my video. It is absolutely like the best. You could seriously store this game anywhere. It's 33 cards and that's all you need. Like the other little components and stuff in there are just in there. So that way they didn't, charge $6 for the game for a deck of cards. Like that's really all it is. And the game for a deck of cards, like that's really all it is. And then you have to keep track of your score. And that's why it has a little extra chits in there. But even then this game's like $11. So I mean, I think dollar for dollar, this might be my favorite game right now. And that just means, for $11, it's not 1/5 the game of my $55 games I love. It's like 1/2 at least. But it's just an awesome little trick taking game. So fun. Just a really great game. And I've played it with a bunch of different people and everybody I played it with is like, okay, let's play again. And it's just that kind of a game. I don't know. It's pretty simple to pick up, but it's just like it's got those layers that you can learn the first layer in 5 minutes, but then you're not going to be very good because I'm going to destroy you because I know layer 2 and you don't know it yet. But then as soon as you see layer 2, you might be a little more competitive and, so get better. So I don't know. It's definitely one that if you can find it.
Kim was trying to buy it and Renegade did something. They sold the last copy and she was like raging about Renegade all weekend. Like, it was terrible. She just was so mad at them. Yeah, it's hilarious.
She said she literally got into a fight to get a copy.
It was pretty close, yeah.
That's crazy. And like Renegade's one of my favorite companies. So I don't know. I can't imagine, like, unless they harmed my family, me having a problem with Renegade.
She ended up getting a copy, but it was a rough Saturday, I think, or Thursday or something. But yeah, she ended up getting one, so it was all good.
So the trick-taking game I haven't played yet that I want to play, that might get on the top 10 is Indulgence. I haven't played that game yet, but I hear it's really good. I'm
interested in that one for sure. It's got nice components and some cool, like, powers if you shoot the moon and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And it's another one of those games that's like $17, $18 if it's in stock and in print. If it's not, then good luck. But Marble Boy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And it's another one of those games that's like $17, $18 if it's in stock and in print. If it's not, then good luck. But Restoration Games is doing a good job with that. That's probably the Restoration Games game that I would endorse over Restoration Current Kickstarter, Marble Boys, and the Marble Fun.
Yeah, I have no desire of playing that game.
Me either. Me either. Like we're in the minority. We're in the slim minority.
Yeah, for sure.
I think my dad called me up who, doesn't do anything with board games. He's like, hey, have you seen this Fireball Boys in the Fireball Island? It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think he called me too. He was so excited.
Yeah, I think he did too. He's like, I went down to Papa's place, found my old shiny marbles. I'm ready to play.
Your dad. Hopefully he never listens to the podcast.
Yeah, right. Like
the podcast.
Yeah, right. Like my dad would listen to this. He's like, my boy's on that. Something's wrong with him. I ain't listening.
Yeah, I can see that.
Love you, Papa. No, my dad's a good guy. He loves everything I do. He supports me and thinks I'm great, but like, there's no way he's listening to this. I could definitely Donald X this episode and like in minute 1 be like, hey daddy, I love you so much. You're my good man. I love you so much. And then like, there's no way in minute 44 he's listening still.
He listens just to hear you say your name and then he shuts it off.
I'd say, Dad, listen, there's a really important and special greeting for you at minute 45 of this podcast. It's imperative you listen to it. I put my heart on my sleeve for this one for you, Dad. And he'd be like, all right, I'll get to it. And like, only reason why I'll get to it. And then like 3 weeks later, I'd be like, so what'd you think? He's like, about what? Oh my gosh. Okay, Dad, whatever.
All right.
No, he would just say, how's that going to improve my simulated farming games? Like, cause that's what he loves to do. He plays farming simulation games on his iPad a lot. He's a retired guy. What else are you going to do? I mean, like, only reason why I get angry about it is I'm jealous. Like, that guy's got the life, man. He gets to like play farming simulation games in sweatpants. Like, who doesn't want that life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome. Again, I say the American dream right there.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I'm extremely jealous, and that's why it feels like it might be hatred, but it's not at all. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm not sure my dad would have an awesome sense of humor about this. I hope he would. If I got him in the right mood, he would. But like, and then he talks about me. He's like, yeah, all my dad does is wear cargo pants and button down plaid shirts and play Kanban. What an idiot. I'd be like, yeah, well, whatever. Go to work for 40 hours a week, you loser. While I play Kanban. I'm going to take the Hyperloop to the South Studio and play Kanban with Jason.
Yes. Oh, that's hilarious.
I hope it's true. Someone tag Elon Musk. Tell him there's another need for a Hyperloop here in the Midwest.
Yes.
Oh, Jason, I was worried we weren't going to get silly on this episode.
No, we just saved it for right now.
I have nothing else to say.
All right, moving on.
Here's an interview with Alex Harity of Poser fame. And I don't mean that he's like a pretend famous person. And he talks about it in this interview. All right, it's Joel here, and I'm with Alex Harity, who is a game designer of a current Kickstarter called Poser. Alex, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Talk to us a little bit about your game. Tell us the basics on it.
Sure, and thanks for having me, Joel. Yeah, so Poser is a hidden identity game, and the big difference in it, it's set in the 80s. It really embraces this nostalgic 80s feeling, at least the way we kind of all thought of the 80s, even if we weren't around during it. And the basic gameplay is each round, every player, 3-day players, every player gets a character card. Those are set from 80s clicks. So Valley Girl, Surfer, Skater, Slacker, Slacker, basically who'd be in the Breakfast Club in the movie. And one of you doesn't get one of those cards. Instead, you get a Poser card. So everybody has the same card. Let's say we're all Valley Girls.
Right.
And one of you is a Poser instead. And basically the premise is each round you're trying to figure out who has a Poser card. And the Poser is trying to figure out what the character is that round. And then, the other basic mechanic is each round a location is turned over. So a place like the pool or the arcade, and a scene. So a setup that says something happens. So they're all based off of kind of 80s tropes. So, something around E.T. showing up and what happens next, or you're got to ask your crush to the prom, or Karate Dojo is challenging you to a match.
Sure.
And you basically continue that story as a group while trying to figure out, what the character is.
So why I like your game, what first appealed to me about this game is I'm a fan of Spyfall, which this definitely has some feels of Spyfall to it and Chameleon. But the problem with those games is if you have people who aren't hyper creative or really quick to think on their feet, they can't do it. They can't think of good questions to ask. They can't think of good ways to conduct themselves. And I thought those story starters that you put on there is like a nice scaffold for people to be able to jump into a character. So that's what I really kind of liked about your Kickstarter. That's really a neat thing on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear because that you described me. I think I love those type of games too, but I do think that I often blank, when it's my turn and I don't know what to ask the person or what topic to go on. And it kind of kills the vibe. And the idea here was I'm setting up ridiculous hijinks each round. It's usually a situation that everyone's kind of familiar with, even whether they saw
Asco
each round. It's usually a situation that everyone's kind of familiar with, even whether they saw the movie it was based on or not. and it gives people like a way to start. Ends up making people goofy who aren't normally that goofy.
Yeah, I also have this role playing system I like to play in called Fiasco, and it's like basically you play out a Coen's Brothers movie, and it's like craziness just ensues. But this game kind of, to me, like those little paragraph starters and then the characters that we're all playing, kind of almost sets up a really light version of that too. So it's almost like you get people into role playing a little bit without having to do all the, rolling up characters and dice and things like that. So pretty neat. The other thing I really liked about your game too, Alex, was the colors on it. I was born in 1980. So I was a little kid in the 80s, and man, I love the 80s stuff. So Dinosaur Island, when I saw that game, it hit me hard in the feels. And this game too, like the color palette you guys chose for this is exactly what I remember the 80s being all about. So the art on this is just really beautiful. And it seems like the artist that you have that did the art in this, he's somewhat renowned. He's a legit deal here.
Yeah, actually, I should say. So, she is a Japanese artist, and oddly enough, she's been around for years. So she was actually a big inspiration for the game in general. So, I knew that I wanted to make a game in this sort of genre. I had some ideas of the mechanics, and I, unrelated to that, also really admired her work. So I wanted to kind of capture the feeling that she has in her work, which is like, yes, 80s nostalgic, but it also feels like something's a little bit off. And part of that might be she's a Japanese artist that's never even been to America. She just has an idea of what the 80s was. And I think she captures it like amazingly. But something feels a little off. And that's kind of the way it is when you recreate. They're kind of a little weird. I love that time period. I am also was a kid in the 80s. Don't remember it in a way like, wasn't a high school student in the 80s. But I also have this memory of it and kind of wanted to recreate how I pictured it. I think of Poser more as like the idea of the 80s rather than maybe exactly what it was like.
Well, and then for those of us that were like 10 when the 80s ended, you have the 90s deck in there too that you can kickstart as well.
Yeah, and that's been much. Most people end up buying that too, and it's probably from the demographic that this appeals to in general, and maybe the large group of friends that I probably tapped into once the Kickstarter started, that they're also more kids of the 90s and grew up most of their years in the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm this. By the time you're hearing this as the audience, you'll have a few days to go check it out. The game is called Poser, and it is on Kickstarter. And I think the price points on it are around $20 for the base game and then $32 with the 90s deck, if I'm remembering right. Does that seem right?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. And we're a week in right now. We're somewhere around 40% to the goal. So we've got a couple things planned. So hopefully we'll do okay. We're optimistic right now.
Yeah. The last Kickstarter that we talked to on the show here, the primary, which I think just funded and just closed today, he was a little behind your pace, and he ended up having a strong push. So I'm really optimistic too. I think you're going to fund. I think it's a cool game. I really like it. Are there any plans for this to? Are you going to take this Kickstarter and then maybe produce a small retail batch, or maybe do something with the trade shows this summer? Fund. I think it's a cool game. I really like it. Are there any plans for this to? Are you going to take this Kickstarter and then maybe produce a small retail batch, or maybe do something with the trade shows this summer? Maybe not this summer, but at some point the GenCons and Origin shows, do some sales there, or is this going to be a Kickstarter exclusive?
Definitely going to be at PAX Unplugged in October, I guess it's November this year. So it kind of just times well. I'm from Philly, and loved the show last year. A long time PAX East goer, so it was great having it nearby, and would love to kind of be part of the show in that way. So assuming all goes well and the Kickstarter succeeds, then I should be there as well, and hopefully we'll produce enough of these that you'll see them in stores afterwards. But that said, you never know. So get on the Kickstarter if you're listening.
The only people who that should be important to are people who listen to this show like a few weeks.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the interest does come around the look, the color palette and the art. So the artist is going to be doing some promotions, and I think she actually just started this morning. So she's got a pretty big following online. So she's going to be promoting it. I've got a few other things like this lined up to start talking to people. And then I've got, some paid marketing with Facebook ads and sharing a bit. So hopefully keeping the momentum. This is my first Kickstarter. So, it's a weird experience where you have a huge first few hours where you're able to get everybody who you've been playtesting with and talking to and your friends who will like quickly hop on and back it. And then there's like a little lull and you've got to try to find a way to like keep that momentum going. So I've been preparing for a while. So hopefully it keeps going and, had good responses so far. So I've been preparing for a while. So hopefully it keeps going and, had good responses so far. There hasn't been like an empty day or anything. The sales have been relatively steady, fortunately.
Sure. And they always seem to pick up towards the end too. I'm optimistic for you, Alex. I think it's going to be a success. I'm banking on it because I'm going to back it myself. So it looks like a neat little game.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel.
So what made you decide to go the Kickstarter route? I know that it's a really nice way to figure out your pre-orders and a nice way to get funding for a startup. So for you seem like a nice fit for it, but were there any other thoughts that you had, maybe independent publishing outside of Kickstarter or anything like that? Or was it just, no, this is a Kickstarter project?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to think about all the different routes. So I kind of did, go through the pluses and minuses, but it really wasn't much of a contest just because the one thing I like about Kickstarter is it sort of forces you to have all your ducks in a row for a date. And then there's this 1 month sort of intense period. Whereas if you're publishing on your own, it's more of a prolonged sort of rollout. And obviously you have to put up more money to start. I'm using, not cheap art. So there's a pretty substantial fixed cost here to get started. So being able to guarantee some pre-orders through Kickstarter is like a bit of no-brainer. And I definitely wanted to do this independently. So I haven't, approached any publishers.
Yeah, fantastic. We just talked to Jamie Stegmeyer last night, who's kind of on the opposite end of Kickstarter. He's done the Kickstarter thing quite a bit and has decided to actually leave Kickstarter. But he talks a lot about the pros and cons of Kickstarter. And I think people who heard my interview with Jamie would have been a week ago now when you're listening to this, hear that you're trying to sell well. I think you're the ideal person to be on Kickstarter doing what you're doing. So it's a great platform for what you're hoping to do here. And it looks like a really nice product that you guys have a lot of thought put into. So it's a well done Kickstarter, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. You don't have, Sharpie on pizza boxes that you're trying to sell. You've got a nice finished product. There's a nice set of rules up that you can see. And it's something that, is reasonable what you have figured out here. So I definitely would encourage all you guys to go check out Poser on Kickstarter. And if you can't find it on Kickstarter, go to our Facebook page, the Board Game Mechanics Facebook page. We'll definitely have the link up there, pinned on the top for a little bit here. So look for it there.
I mean, we have poser.fun, the website. So that's our, will be our site once Kickstarter ends. Right now, it just redirects to Kickstarter. But yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the head why it works for me. And, I obviously Jamie was a great and thought. Now it's he's kind of wrote the Bible on his site for
Absolutely.
how to do this. So it was a really good resource, and I think I did things a little bit differently here in that I tried to put a lot of time and thought and some money into the production values of this so that it doesn't really look like an independent product seeing it in your hands. But I'm not also didn't do the route of, approaching a lot of reviewers or people in the gaming industry, because the truth is this is like a really fun party game. It's the type of game you play for an hour before you play something like really serious. It's great, drinking with friends, with people who don't play games all the time. So it has a little bit of a different demo than like the more hardcore strategy games that like I do love, but a lot of my friends aren't as interested in. Maybe my wife wouldn't play.
Yeah, I absolutely think you've got a good product here. It does look really...
Don't play games all the time. So it has a little bit of a different demo than like the more hardcore strategy games that like I do love, but a lot of my friends aren't as interested in. Maybe my wife wouldn't play.
Yeah, I absolutely think you've got a good product here, and it does look really nice. We've said that a couple times now, but it's definitely worth looking at the art. This being an auditory medium, you can't see that art, so go check it out though, for real. It's neat. It looks like the Atari was trying to do more than it should. I mean, that kind of cool pixel art. I don't know, with a great just palette, a great color scheme. The palm trees I saw on one of the pieces of art were just really cool looking. It's like a pixel art, but it's not like a cliched been done pixel art. It's a different style for sure. I really like it. All right, so do you have anything else in the works other than Poser, or is this just one step at a time kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the big next piece is be some more coming soon through the updates on the page. But the truth is, I have artists lined up, but it's not Yoko Honda. It's actually like a few different artists working on it. I tried to do something a little different to try to capture like very different types of 90s feel, and I still have a decent amount of work to do there. So that's shipping separately from the main Poser game. That's going to ship closer to the end of the year for backers. So there's admittedly quite a bit of work there left just on the creative side.
Yeah. How long have you been working on Poser? When did this thing first become a thing?
It was about the beginning of last year. So I guess that's a year and 3-4 months now.
Sure.
Yeah, I had some ideas earlier, but that was when it actually like the name came and the general mechanics. It's changed quite a few times over those first 6 months, especially. So I guess that's a year and 3-4 months now.
Sure.
Yeah, I had some ideas earlier, but that was when it actually like the name came and the general mechanics. It's changed quite a few times over those first 6 months, especially, where it was something a little more like Mafia, where you had opposing groups. And at one time I had leaned way heavily into the role playing side and decided that didn't work. And so the same kind of mechanics have been there, but the weight on each of them have changed quite a bit over the last year.
That stuff on the cutting room floor becomes expansions though and stuff. So we'll maybe see some of that a bit later. That's awesome.
Totally.
I've had a couple board game designs that I'm I don't know, maybe halfway through even the initial development stages, but both those games kind of came to me like a lightning strike. Like 3:00 in the morning, I got to get up and start typing some stuff down. Was that kind of how this happened, or was this a slow? You kind of talked about some change, or was this a slow? You kind of talked about some changes that happened, but the initial concept, was it a gradual thing, or was it like oh wow, this would be cool?
Yeah, it was very lightning strike-ish, the way you described it, to get like the rough outline of this. All came together really, really quickly. So I mentioned, I kind of had ideas for years about like, this genre I'd like to play. Didn't have the theme, didn't have, anything unique about it. And then it was a combination of like looking at some Yoko Honda artwork and thinking like, oh, this feels like the 80s. I want to capture that feel. What was the 80s? And all of a sudden it all came together where it was this, it's a click, one person is off, you tell a story, and all that sort of came together within, I don't know, an hour or something.
Sure.
And then for a long time, I was using prototypes and using her artwork, having never reached out to her, just assuming that I was going to find someone who could capture a similar feel to it. So works with MTV. So I just didn't think this would be something she would do. So in my head, I was like, let me just use this for now to capture the feel and I'll find someone else later. And then eventually just reached out to her and said like, hey, is this something you want to do? And she was obviously receptive to it. So those early prototypes were using just art that I found that she did that I didn't have the rights to.
And that was a really happy day for you, I'm sure, when she said, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point where I'm like, okay, I have to do this for sure. Now that like it felt like a sign, and that was when I picked a date for the Kickstarter at that point, and was like, I'm going to finish all the playtesting I need. I'm going to finish everything to get ready for then. And I ended up doing it a week after the date I picked, but I thought that was pretty good. A few months out, or more than a few months out.
That is great. So some questions that we ask everybody who's on the show.
I thought that was pretty good. A few months out, or more than a few months out.
That is great. So some questions that we ask everybody who's on the show. Basically some typical what you'd ask a gamer. Who are you playing right now? What games are you playing?
So I wish I could tell you that I'm playing anything but this over the last few months, but I mean, I guess the big games I'm playing have been more like digital. So I'm a huge Switch fan. I have a long commute to my job.
Yeah.
I'm on that constantly. It's been like a lifesaver since it came out. And then one of my clients, I work at a digital product agency. One of our clients is Epic Games. So playing a lot of Fortnite, just because it's kind of, I feel like I owe it to my client, and it's also super fun. So
you heard it here from Alex first. Fortnite's coming to Switch. I hope so. That would be like the perfect marriage there. Perfect marriage there.
I hope so too. Yeah, we've been privy to some insider info, but that one I don't know yet, and I wish I did. But so that's on the digital side, and then on the tabletop side, it's been so much poser testing, and then testing every other type of hidden identity game. So obviously, like Secret Hitler and Spyfall and that genre constantly, with some role playing thrown in too, just to sort of see how I can incorporate that better. So those have been big ones. And then my favorite game all time is Carcassonne. It's not that original, but just love it.
Yeah. Do you play it mean or do you play it nice?
That's a good question. It starts out nice. Then I'm awful.
I think they all do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, then we always close with a couple of just something to think about here. Is cereal soup?
No.
I don't know. I might take the other side of that one.
No, it's not. Well, well, then what's soup? Something floating in liquid?
A suspension of food in a liquid. Yeah, I think this might be a whole other interview we need to do. I don't know. Yeah. How do you feel about pineapple on pizza?
It's a travesty.
Okay, I like you after all. If you were a mad scientist, what scientific experiment would you run if money and ethics weren't an issue? What would be the Kickstarter you would do if you didn't have to care about money or ethics?
Oh man, I guess I clone my bulldog in a.
Oh, that's awesome!
I have a bunch of her running around,
and we can back that. So we can kickstart a clone of your bulldog. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Although I hear about I guess some celebrities have actually cloned their animals.
Wrap up.
Yeah, with celebrity.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I wouldn't either. Probably do too. I'm going to be honest.
You know what? I guess if I was a mad scientist, I would just try to get her to be around forever. Let's work on some life altering thing. Not me, not my kid. My bulldog. The first thought. I sound like a terrible person here.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and close out with tell me a little bit more about the Kickstarter. Give us a wrap up.
Yeah, great. So hope you guys all check out Poser on Kickstarter. So it's we're in week. So I don't know, when is this going?
This will be live the 27th. So I think you'll have about a week to get to it, guys.
Excellent. So about a week left. If you like hidden identity games, if you're looking for a good game for a party, it's the type of game you play for, an hour at the beginning of the night, get people loose, get people talking. It's great with a beer in your hand. And if you miss the 80s, then it's a really great reminder, or you at least think you would have missed.
Yeah.
Then it's a really great reminder, or you at least think you would have missed the 80s if you're around for it. Then this is a great way to kind of get in touch with that and remember things that you're seeing in Stranger Things on TV or any other kind of like retro 80s shows that have been around lately.
Yeah, go check it out, Poser. Really neat artwork, really neat color palette. Do please check it out. Thanks, Alex, again for your time, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, that game, it certainly doesn't seem bad, Jason. It seems like something that I would absolutely play. And I think if he's close to backing, I will definitely back it. I think I will probably back it. I don't know. I'm looking at it a little more. It does overlap a lot with some other games I own. That'd be the only reason why I'd hesitate. But I would suggest it for anybody who doesn't have on, I felt really bad about the Yokohama thing, that I didn't know Yokohama is a woman.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I'm going to outdo that story with this one. I was listening to NPR tonight, and they were talking to the actor who plays Cece on New Girl, and she's from India. Like, she's Indian. And then the lady on NPR goes, "So your character is Native American then, right?" And I thought, oh man, she thought she couldn't say Indian because it wasn't politically correct. But like, that's what her character is. It's Indian. So I felt like, I felt like I was like really mildly misinformed compared to that. So I mean, like, it's NPR too. Like, I'm guessing at least like 1.5 or 2 times as many people listen to NPR as our podcast. So I mean,
yeah,
how embarrassing for her.
Yeah. I actually do think that game sounds kind of interesting. I like that where you're not trying to guess. I actually do think that game sounds kind of interesting. I like that where you're not trying to guess where you are, but you're trying to guess who you are. That's a cool kind of twist, because I think it's going to be harder to figure out who someone is than where you are. So just asking the questions based on the scenario for that will be kind of interesting.
And again, love you, Pop. You're my favorite old man to play games with. But like when I play Spyfall with my dad and family, like my dad has 2 go-to questions. Like, he's like, "Do you have a gun?" That's his first question he always asks. So if you're like on the International Space Station and you have a gun, like, it's like, no, like, and then the other thing too is my dad's so bad at these games that you never know he's the spy unless he starts uncontrollably laughing. Like, he can't help but laugh when he's the spy. Like, he just gets all red in the face and just laughs like so hard. But his questions are, "Do you have a gun?" And "What do you think about these floors? Have they been vacuumed lately?" And like, he always loves to ask that question when we're at the beach. Like, that's his favorite thing to ask.
That's hilarious.
So like, for a guy like him, this is a perfect game, because it's like, hey, here's who you are. Here's what just happened. Now pretend like something next is going to happen, instead of having to come up with questions, which I have a hard time with questions sometimes too. So
right. Yeah. That's hilarious. I want to play that game with your dad so bad.
Like, it kind of sucks. Like, everyone likes me. They're like, "You're pretty cool, but like, can we get some dad time?" Like, seriously, everybody loves my dad. He's a good time. I mean, he really is. But my favorite thing about him is that when we can get him started laughing, he can't stop. Like, he gets so red in the face and just like out of breath from laughing so hard for like 10 minutes. It's my favorite thing.
That's hilarious.
And then you can, anyway, about him is that when we can get him started laughing, he can't stop. Like, he gets so red in the face and just like out of breath from laughing so hard for like 10 minutes. It's my favorite thing.
That's hilarious.
And then you can't help but laugh too when he's laughing like that. So anyway, well, hey, thanks for listening, guys. I think we need a passphrase, Jason. What's it going to be? Is it going to be Joel's dad?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Joel's dad.
My dad's going to get dozens of friend requests from people who listen to this episode.
Oh, that's hilarious. We actually talked about him, I think, more than we did board games.
I'm going to get an angry phone call from him on Saturday. He's like, I listen to every minute, every second of every podcast you do. Why are you talking so much mad trash about me on that episode? And he would say mad trash too. He'd be like, I got my snapback on. You're talking mad trash about me.
Yeah. All of those things, I'm sure your dad would say.
Announcement that
pick it. Whatever you say it is what it will be.
Yep. Richard Picorni is our passphrase. Hey, but you know what? For those of you who made it to hour 17 or whatever we're in right now, you guys get to hear the announcement that if you are on our Facebook page, we do have a Discord there now. So I think we're remarkably quick to respond to messages on there. And by that, I mean, within like 8 hours, we talk to people. So if you want to connect with us there, and like, I don't know, maybe we'll do some voice stuff there eventually, and you guys can hang out and just talk to us. So anyway, that's an announcement.
Yep, that's a good announcement. I like it.
Everybody have a great International Tabletop Day, and I've been Joel.
And I'm Jason. See you next week.
Oh my gosh, I just had the worst thought. In like 20 years from now, I'll be listening to these old podcasts and like mourning my dad, who's like probably dead by now. So